Hi folks, in previous videos what I've shown you is some very simple ways of styling HTML, and usually what we've been doing is creating a rule set where we target a particular tag, say a paragraph tag, and then we apply the rest of the rule set, like color blue, and you'll see that this makes all the paragraphs blue. CSS provides us with some other tools which allow us to target things with a bit more sophistication. And namely, in this video, I want to show you how you can do it using IDs and classes. So let's start with an ID first. Let's create let's add an ID to a paragraph right here. We'll just call this ID equals my heading. And generally, when you're giving a name for an ID or a class, maybe it has more than it's 2 words, use a hyphen in the middle. That's the standard practice. You use something like an underscore too, but hyphens are what's recommended. And then to actually just target this ID, we can go. You have to preface an ID as when you're defining your selector in your rule set. You go like so, with a £, and then my heading, and then let's make the font size bigger, so 40 pixels. So basically then what we've done is we've used this rule set to target an ID called my heading, and then we've put the ID attribute in one of our paragraphs here, and then put the value right here. A common mistake often is to maybe put the £, into the actual value, and that obviously makes the CSS stop working. So don't do that. And sometimes we'll forget to leave the prefix out too. So if you leave the prefix or the £, off, it stops working as well. So make sure to include those. So IDs can only be applied to one tag at a time. You wouldn't want to use this same. You could put another ID in different tags here, but you wouldn't want to use the same value. So you can only have one ID with the name my heading in your HTML. You could put in extras. The browser won't complain, but it's not standard practice. If you want to target multiple IDs, say you wanted to apply a style to multiple, if you wanted to target multiple elements, instead of using an ID, you would use class. So let's create a class now. So class equals my content, and notice I use the hyphen again, and let's apply this to all the remaining paragraphs that I have here in my example. And then to create the rule set here, it's very similar to the ID, only instead of prefixing the selector with a £, we prefix it with a period. So my content, and then we can apply the rest of the rule set. In this case, we haven't seen this particular font property, but I'll just demo it for you right now. And now we get a different font family applied just to the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th paragraphs. So let's clean this up just a little bit. Okay. So one other thing you can do, you can actually apply multiple classes to a particular element. So let's add another class here. If we're going to add another class, we separate it from the previous class with the space, and then we can add it. We're going to add something. We're going to create a class called error. And now let's define the error class over here, the rule set associated with it. And let's just give it a different color. And so now what we've done is we have two classes being applied to this third paragraph. The first one is my content, which changes the font family, and then the error class, which changes the color of the font. And we'll probably learn a bit more about specificity later, but of course you can see that actually two different CSS rules are trying to style the paragraph color. Up above, it's blue, and then down here, and this, just on this particular paragraph, it's red. And the red overrides the blue because it has greater specificity. And we'll explain that more in a later video. So just by way of review, IDs you should only use on one element in your HTML page, whereas classes you can apply to multiple elements. And then when you are applying classes, you can apply just one class, or you can actually apply multiple classes. And finally, you can also combine IDs and classes. So in this fourth paragraph, we could add an extra ID right here. And let's just call that ID equals foo. Okay. And let's create a rule set for this new ID. It's 60 pixels. And so now we have an ID being used to style this paragraph, which is changing the font size to 60 pixels. And then, in addition, a class, my content, which is changing the font family to Comic Sans. So you can sort of mix and combine these together in multiple ways.